Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of Midnight Snacks. My name is Alex, and I'm joined by my co host, Jerry. Jerry, how are you doing?
I'm well. Hi, everybody.
So, today's a pretty interesting episode because it's going to be our very first season review of a TV show. It is also
Yep.
our first TV show.
Yep.
It is not our first Disney Plus related title, but it is the first Disney Plus television show, and it is also the first MCU property we're touching. It's a episode of first today.
Yep.
And for anyone wondering, it is a continuation of the WandaVision series. It is Agatha All Along. This has been an interesting show to watch, I think, because I wasn't crazy excited for it the same way I think a lot of other fans were, because I did love WandaVision, but I have a very touch and go relationship with the MCU.
Mhm.
And yes, I liked Agatha in that show, but at the same time, I didn't see what else there was to tell. What how did you feel about Agatha All Along when you heard it was announced?
Well, I was overjoyed because I love Catherine Hahn. I feel
No.
that she was the star of the show of WandaVision. So I, much as I've said before, sometimes I just love revisiting a world for the sake of revisiting a world. And I was very happy to revisit with Agatha because I feel like there was a lot there. The way that she was punished at the end, I thought merited a little bit more stuff. Never did I dream that she'd get her own series. I don't think even Catherine Hahn thought that she was going to get her own series out of this, but the people spoke, and Disney delivered. And I have to say, beginning to end, this show was appointment TV for me. Like 9 o'clock when it was released, I was right there because I could not get enough of the show, and to continue down the road of the witches with them, I think was super fun to go to do.
Yeah, we decided pretty early on, about a month and a half ago. We kind of figured, because we're watching Agatha All Along, we're both interested, and it's Halloween spooky television season.
And happy Halloween. Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's right. It is Halloween.
Yeah.
I didn't even. Yeah, we did decide that we would record this episode immediately after the episodes aired yesterday. So we would do it today, and it just so happens that it is Halloween. So happy Halloween to anyone listening. And so, backtracking a little bit to the WandaVision to Agatha All Along, kind of the genesis of Agatha All Along series. I always kind of have this point of contention with the MCU where they want to elevate characters sometimes that are kind of like C to D tier characters in the comics that can never truly kind of support their own franchise and their own film. And they're greatest side characters that you join as part of like a bigger storyline. But it's always interesting to me whenever they try to elevate kind of certain characters as replacements for others. And I think we've experienced a lot of that in phase 4, where a lot of the big iconic Avengers have kind of moved over into like a sidebar because their stories have ended, and they've tried to elevate a lot of like smaller characters or like more B-level characters, and they've had varying levels of success. One would argue that they haven't had almost any success with it because Bob Iger had to come in and kind of say we're stopping all of this. But specifically with Agatha, I did read the Avengers comics growing up, and so to me, Agatha Harkness was always a old witch that was responsible for taking care of Wanda's fake children that she manifested and that she raised with Vision, which is similar to WandaVision. So when they brought in Catherine Hahn as like a young Agatha, I think at first I was like, okay, of course they're doing something non-comic accurate, but she was fantastic and I loved it. So I immediately bought it. when they were selling it to me.
Yeah.
And still, that being said, I was not excited for an Agatha All Along series because I wasn't sure what else there was to tell.
Sure.
And I am eating my words because I did not expect at all to enjoy this series, and as much as I did, and I did not expect for the story that they were able to conjure for Agatha to be so powerful and so just so full of depth, and the different layers that were added onto each character that was involved in the series. I had no clue that when I saw this character in WandaVision, you know, doing her Agatha All Along little song and whatnot and getting locked up in Wanda's kind of construct at the end, I had no clue that they would be able to really expand this character like this. And that's why I'm really excited to kind of dive deeper. So I'm gonna hand it over to you for the next commentary on this.
Let me say that I was very excited for this show because I feel like there needs to be more female characters in the MCU. So right out the gate, I was very pleased with this.
Is this a hot take? Is this a hot take?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, if Twitter's to be believed, Phase 4 is the MCU. That's what Twitter calls Phase 4.
You know, I don't really listen to Twitter's analysis of a lot of things because what their perception of reality and what actually is two different things. So
as you shouldn't.
I think for Marvel Television or whatever the TV part of the MCU is called now, was lacking, I think, in female-led TV shows, right? Even WandaVision had it was just her, right? Because it was then Vision and the neighbors and stuff like that. So when I heard that this was being announced, I was very excited. When Catherine Hahn signed on, I was very excited. Once the casting things were coming out, I just was doing somersaults. When Patti LuPone signed on, forget it. Like, I was on board.
Yeah, that was really interesting. When she was added to the cast, I was like, oh, they're digging into that well for this show.
And I will say, I'm of two minds about the show. One, I think the show is actually not very innovative. I think it did a lot to mirror things that are in the cultural consciousness. I mean, if you really think about it, the point of the show is the Wizard of Oz. It's a road, they go on adventures, things happen at little spots. You know, it's a plot that we know, that is familiar to us, that lends itself to be episodic, right? Every episode is one thing, which I thought was brilliant. But at the same time, in the same way that it is not very innovative, what a cast, right? What a diverse, beautiful cast of, you know, Black ladies, Asian ladies, old ladies, queer ladies. Like, it ran the gamut, I think, in representation, which I think is also very lacking, right? I think everybody who saw that, and then the queer kid, right? Who didn't see themselves in Joe Locke's character? I know I did.
Well, and another kind of really important thing is that, at least for me, I love representation, but I love it even more when representation feels natural.
Yes.
When it doesn't feel like
forced,
like
messagey.
it's forced and it's messagey. And I think, you know, from a pessimistic standpoint, someone could, from the outside in, look at, you know, Agatha All Along being all women and having a queer actor and a queer character and, you know, the diversity. They could easily fall into the trap of like, oh, this is all just happening to check all these woke points and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, I'm not saying that doesn't happen in other things, but here it just feels like this is exactly the cast, exactly the type of characters that feel so earned for a story like this.
Well, and think about the genesis of each character coming into the coven, right? They were discards, they were people who were depowered, they were people who didn't have any confidence in themselves. They're a ragtag bunch of people. And, you know, I think it speaks to outcasts and how people feel, and can be represented in a way to come together where the differences and the things that you think make you weak actually make you strong. So I loved that overall arching message, but they don't beat you over the head with it, right? Like, you extrapolate that as the viewer, but you're not really being spoon-fed that stuff. So the casting, top notch. Related to that, Joe Locke, I mean, bless him, Heartstopper.
That's your boo. That's your boo.
It is not easy, I think, to walk into that show, it being your second professional job, and look at Catherine Hahn and look at Patti LuPone and look at some of those other actresses and hold your own. And I think Joe Locke did it to perfection, right? I think his character, learning from them, also lends itself to the personification of that. But I think that kid can act anybody out of a scene. He steals every scene he's in, including against some of the big heavy hitters of the show.
I agree. I really like Joe Locke. We've discussed in a previous episode that I've never seen Heartstoppers. I've never seen. Oh, it's one. It's one. It's Heartstopper, not Heartstoppers.
Yes, there's no S.
Oh. Well, I've never seen it, but I am familiar with Joe Locke being on that show, and I was kind of hoping to see, since I know that show is so popular, I was interested in seeing what that was gonna, what that was gonna mean for him being on this one. And I gotta say, he really impressed me. He gets it. Like, he knows the world he's in, that comic book world. He's willing to up it, but at the same time, he's really able to hit the kind of emotional beats. You really feel for his character. You really feel for the things he's going through. He knows how to sell it on his face. Honestly, everybody in the cast was amazing.
Everybody.
I really I'm shocked that I can't feel like I got, even I was a little surprised at how much I ended up enjoying Aubrey Plaza, because I love Aubrey Plaza, but I still wasn't sure if her as the character of Death was going to ultimately really work. And then by the end of it, it was so Aubrey Plaza'd that it worked. Yeah.
I will say, and it's one of two of my favorite episodes of the series. The first episode, where she is the spell isn't broken yet. She is in this diluted world where she's like a true crime detective.
We're giving a quick little plug. That is Kate Winslet. It was based on the Kate Winslet series from HBO, known as the Mayor of Easttown. Fantastic series.
Yeah.
Have you've seen it?
I haven't seen it. I've been meaning to see it, but I haven't watched it.
It's really good.
My point is, I think that episode encapsulates so well Catherine Hahn's commitment to this role, because you watch that and then you watch the rest of it, and man, she was that detective. She believed that she was that person, and she was solving a murder and all that stuff. I thought it was other things happen in the show, and there are other Emmy moments, I would say, where her acting really comes. But that first episode really, it's probably the one I watched the most, just because I love to see her in that world. And then as it's kind of clicking that she's not really in this world, you can see the wheels turning. So I just thought, my hands off to her, because that episode, I think it's a tour de force of acting.
I mean, she should definitely use that episode as proof that she can be cast in that kind of stuff. She's kind of de facto comedic roles, but I think what she did in that first episode, which it was called Seekest Thou Thy Road, or The Road, Seekest Thou the Road, what she did in that episode with the Mayor of Easttown was really solid, and I would love to see her do something like that.
You kind of forget you're watching a witch, right? And I guess it's the first episode, but it's that disorientating thing that I think WandaVision did very successfully for the first like 3 or 4 episodes, where you don't know what the hell you're watching, right? And suddenly you get it, and suddenly you see the mastery of what is being done. So I really enjoyed that episode.
I don't know, man. I'm just gonna be really surprised at how good this show is.
Yeah.
Like, I just, I feel like Disney Plus just never really is able to hit it. Like, they're always just kind of missing the mark. They're always making stuff that feels pretty cheap. And I know if anybody's listening, they're gonna, yell at me because Loki is quote unquote amazing.
Yeah.
I think the production value of Loki is great. I cannot get into it. But I'm just shocked at the level of care this show has. Like, it shows that the people making it understand the witchy corner of the MCU. They understand the character of Agatha. They understand the characters, related to the Maximoffs. They really want to bring this like immense amount of detail to it. And go ahead. No.
I was going to say, and they understand the interrelationship of women. At the end of the day, right? It is their connection as witches, as not witches, as women, as women of different generations, of different backgrounds, and how all of that really conspires really to their success. So and the producer, the director of this, Jack, I'm forgetting her name.
Jack Schaefer.
And you could tell that this was her baby, right? And she took great care to really put something across that spoke to many people.
And she also did WandaVision. She also did WandaVision. She is not doing Vision Quest, which is the Vision spin-off series. But there are rumors going around right now of a Wiccan series. And, now I'm starting to hear a lot of chatter of people who want Jack Schaefer to be elevated into something higher in the MCU, possibly the Scarlet Witch movie or something. Whenever they finally decide to confirm if we're getting that.
Yeah.
I think that's a good segue actually into the Scarlet Witch of it all. The Scarlet Witch of it all. Like, I think a lot of people go into the show, especially given the ending of Multiverse of Madness with what happened to Wanda. And I mean, I love Wanda. I of course was, very excited with all the little teases to her death and the Darkhold and the Maximoff in the very first episode. And then I instinctively already knew that Teen was, going to be Wiccan. Although I was scared that I was falling into a situation of fan hoping for Thing, but MCU not planning on giving you Thing.
Yes.
Which is a thing that did happen on WandaVision with, Quicksilver and just a few other things. Like there were so I was excited that they actually went there. I love that he had his own version of the Wanda crown. That was cool. There was a cameo from Ralph Boner,
who I love.
Ralph Boner, played by Evan Peters.
Love him.
That was great. That it's funny that he's still a through line in these Maximoff related shows. I didn't even think about it while watching it. Now that we're talking about it, he's Pietro. Sort of, you know what I mean? Pietro, sort of, but and then Billy's a Maximoff too. I thought that I love that I'm just now realizing this. Yeah. Because in my mind I've been calling him Ralph Boner, the fake Quicksilver.
Yeah.
So things that I wrote here was, for example, like I love the emotion. I feel like I rarely connect to the emotion in this stuff. And I felt like this one just really nailed it. Like I felt for these characters. I fell in love with these characters. Like the fact that they were able to create a show that I was not interested in, filled with a bunch of characters that I knew nothing about, and at the end of it made me genuinely care for each of them, love each of the actresses that, you know, portrayed them, and actually wish that I could get to see more. Says a lot.
Yeah.
Well,
let me add, speaking of,
please do.
You know, the emotion of it, I would be remiss if I didn't pause and acknowledge the majesty that was episode 7 of Patti LuPone and the Tarot Challenge, and the masterful writing that went into that episode. You know, with her flashes of memory and her saying, you know, her little Tourette's moments where she would just say random things, and having that all kind of coalesce into her challenge or her, you know, her trial. And then for that to be her salvation, I thought was just, I mean, I watched it, I rewound it, I watched it again. Next morning, I watched it again. It is the best episode of the series, I think.
I agree. It was awesome.
For her to be the older character in the coven and feel so insecure about herself and her talents, and for her to feel so lonely, and for her to feel so rooted outside of her craft, but then joining this ragtag bunch of people, she finds her courage, right? And she finds what she's needed, which is sisters in the craft, to then have that lead to her power, but then to her undoing. I mean, Shakespeare couldn't have done it better, right? It was just perfection. And Patti LuPone, you know, she's known for acting big. You have, when you're in you know, she's a Broadway legend. You act big because you've got to get to the last seat in the house. But the subtlety in which she portrayed Lilia in that episode specifically was just a masterclass, I thought. I can't say enough about it. She I think was my favorite character of the series.
Yeah, Lilia's episode was just unexpected. Like it was just like unexpected, like the how difficult it is to write an episode that is jumping back and forth, and the detail and the layering of the fact that they were planting seeds to what was happening in that episode way back.
Yep.
And this show did that a few times where they actually pulled the rug from under you right at the end, letting you know that you've already seen so many things that were setting this up. You just didn't realize they were connected to this. And that's really difficult to do. Yep. And I would say like one of the most unexpected things about Lilia's episode was how heartbreaking it was. I didn't expect to feel as sad for her as I expected. And what I mean by that is that I had like I mentioned earlier, I just started loving all these characters, and hearing about like her inner turmoil with the way her powers manifest, and her making herself small and keeping herself secluded, even though all she wanted was to be around other witches again and have a true coven again. Like that's just heartbreaking, and Patti LuPone brought it.
Yeah. I also think that the episode itself, like if you just watch that episode, and the thesis statement, right? The whole point that they're trying to make is that time is an illusion. It's not linear. And the episode itself tells that story because it starts with her end. Right. And then it finishes with her beginning. So I just thought that it was a masterclass in writing and in how they tell the story of a character by how the episode is shot, how it's presented, which I thought was super fantastic. The scenes with her teacher, when the teacher's like, "Are you in nature?" and she's like, "No." And she's like, "Do you have a coven?" And she's like, "No." read the tea leaves. Oh, I'm not good at this. Always excuses with you, you know, like
Right.
it just goes to show, right? No matter how old you are or how much you know, you're always going to be that insecure person if you are that insecure person. And I think they showed that so beautifully in those scenes with the teacher.
And this show did a lot of that too, where it hides a lot of like kind of really great nuggets of life lessons and like really true to life things that all of us carry with ourselves. Like, you know, that like you were mentioning, like the tea leaves, that is pretty much how a lot of us like sometimes convince ourselves that we're not good at something.
Right.
And we've told ourselves that narrative for so long that it becomes true. You can't actually break out of a cycle if you've convinced yourself, you know, that is what you are. You need someone to kind of tell you, to give you that kind of point, matter of fact, so you can break out of it. And it's those little things that I just don't expect. Like there's this comment here. I watch Rio tells Agatha, she goes in the final episode, the second to last episode, she goes, I watch you just as closely as you watch everyone else. Why do you let them believe those things about you? And she says, because the truth is too awful.
Yeah.
And what she's essentially talking about there is the fact that she doesn't want them to know that she was basically taking people's lives. She was basically taking people's lives. And that is why Rio took her, you know, but Rio also took her son. She didn't actually kill her own son.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people, which is the coven, thinking that she sacrificed her own son, and that actually not being the case, I thought was a really powerful moment about that I think demonstrates how self-preservation can sometimes be your undoing.
Right.
And I think it was definitely her undoing. I hadn't, until you mentioned it, I hadn't connected it with her, you know, con job of stealing people's powers for, but she did that after. So I don't know. I don't know if that's why Rio took the kid. That was after, right?
No, she was right. So no, so the
She
kid
started with the kid.
Right. He was gonna die anyway. She bought like all that Rio was willing to give her was death.
Yeah.
Or rather, all Rio
6
was willing to
years.
give her was time. I don't think she mentioned how many years she was gonna
Well,
give
he
her.
was 6.
Right, but I think Agatha didn't know when Rio was going to come for him.
Right,
You get what I
yeah.
mean? Like she said, all I can give you is time. She never said how much. And I think it was Agatha preferred for people to believe that she killed her own son or sacrificed him or something along those lines than for people to know that she used him to steal and kill other witches to make herself more powerful.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was interesting. It's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
It's
I have
almost
to
like
say,
she's willing to wear, and I think I understand why. I think it's because she wants people to believe she's cruel. You know what I mean? She wants people to believe like she's heartless and that she is this villain. And to build up her reputation, like, oh, she's so evil. She even like sacrificed her own son.
I have to think about it a little bit more. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think she was dealing I think she was dealing with a lot of trauma. I think the episode where they're in the clubhouse and the ghost of the mom shows up and she very honestly asks her mom, "Why did you hate me? Why do you still hate me?" And she said, "Because you were born evil. I should have killed you when you were ripped out of my body." I mean, think about that, right? Like think about your mother telling you that and growing up with that. Like you grow up believing you're nothing or you're a villain or you're evil. And so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Where you are told something so much that you believe it and you act on it. And I think that's where she was coming from. In that same vein, in that same episode where she's absorbing the power of Alice and teenager is saying, hey, stop, and she can't stop, and then he confronts her after the fact, after she dies, and she's like, why didn't you stop? And she's like, I couldn't. what do you make of that? Because I honestly like I don't understand. I didn't get that. I didn't really understand why she couldn't stop.
Yeah, I think what they're trying to do there is kind of maybe like a greed, not a greed element, but like it's similar to how I mentioned in the craft episode that TV and TV witches and movie witches love to use this idea that magic is really addictive. And I think in the concept of Agatha with that kind of idea, I think it's her power is being able to suck other witches' power so much, and it feeds her so much that when she's getting juiced up, she doesn't want to let go. It's too good to let go. And we'll never really find out, but it could be like she genuinely can't let go, or she is so
well. She can. She proved she could.
Yeah,
she didn't take Wiccans.
So she just never wanted to. Right? She just never wanted to. And it was because she was.
But that's not what you get from that scene, right? Especially in the confrontation after with Teen and Agatha, and then she kind of deflects it, right? And she's like, "You're so like your mother," and then she kind of turns it on him, and she tries to draw a parallel between what she's doing and what Wanda did, and in turn what he ends up doing. I don't know. I have to think about that a little bit more too. I wasn't. I went into the show thinking that they were going to humanize her and they were going to give us a perspective on her that she's really not all that bad. I don't think they did that. I think that, till the end, she was not to be trusted.
I have a controversial opinion on bad characters or evil characters or characters with shades of gray.
Yeah.
I love them.
Uh-huh.
That's a controversial opinion nowadays. Nowadays, I feel like the general consensus is the heroes need to always be this kind of model of heroism, and they can't have shades of gray to like the actions that happen out of consequences or out of their, these characters. And these characters are largely like gods among men. You know what I mean? Like, and when gods are going to fight among men, men are going to die.
Yeah.
And so, by the end of the episode, we find out that by the end of the season, we find out that, Teen has potentially, or we keep calling him Teen, Billy Maximoff.
I'm going to keep calling him Teen.
Billy Maximoff, Wiccan, has potentially killed. Did you understand that? Do you think he killed Lilia? Do you think he killed Lilia and, in the construct? Is it his fault that they died?
Yeah,
it's his fault because he created it and they died within there, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, I agree with that. And so now we have Wanda, did Wanda kill people? She did. She killed people in Multiverse of Madness.
And just for the record, I want to go on publicly and say that I think that Wanda is a villain. I would be hard pressed to change my opinion that she can be redeemed in any way. I recently rewatched Multiverse of Madness and it's just unhinged. She is unhinged, and it took America Chavez, to show her how monstrous she was in front of her children for her to kind of realize what she was doing. So it's a house divided. My partner here thinks, the sun shines out of Wanda's ass. So it's a house divided, but she's a monster.
So yes, Wanda is a villain. Wanda does horrible things in the comics, but just as much as she does great things. But I'm from the school of Willow at Buffy the Vampire Slayer, who went dark and killed people, and then she just not loses her mind, but she goes into deep sadness and regret over what she did. And she doesn't ever want to use magic again because she doesn't know if she doesn't want to hurt any more people. She doesn't want to ever do that. And she goes through this whole journey of having to be able to forgive herself and use powers again and actually rise up to do good. So I think there is a journey to that. Of course, like I mentioned, nowadays likes those kinds of shades of gray. I think like you don't want to accept that this person did bad things once and still like them moving forward based on like new personality.
Well, you could do bad things, but if you're killing people, like
right, but like then we get into like, you know, like for example, is it Batman's responsibility? Is it Batman's responsibility to make sure if he's in a warehouse fighting a bunch of guys, is it his responsibility to make sure that all those guys in the warehouse do not die while they're fighting him?
No, because he is immortal. He can't do
like
the
if
job
if they're trying to kill him, if
Right.
they're trying to kill him and in maneuvers with him, either fighting or he throws grenades or he does something, they die. Is it his fault? Did he just murder people?
I think he did.
Right, but is he in the wrong?
Probably.
See, that's the thing. I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. Like it's just like they are crooks, they are villains, they are rapists,
they deserve it.
They are murderers. They are there because they are trafficking people. They are doing all these things. It is if he throws a grenade and you happen to be in the vicinity of the grenade.
But you can't be judge, jury, and executioner.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying
if it happens.
If it happens, no. What I'm saying is, it's like that. It's similar to what I was just mentioning about the gods among men. Like these are situations that these characters are putting themselves in, and they are life or death situations, and they're doing whatever it is that needs to be done. Am I gonna like kind of paint like a brush and be like, oh, he needs to go in there and use non-lethal methods to make sure that all these rapists and murderers don't make it out of here alive? No, like that's madness to me.
Okay. Well, tying it back to your earlier
point
of Wanda and the road, because I think there are two major themes or major things in the show. It's the road and the ballad. The road, as you were alluded to, is a construct that Wiccan does, right? It doesn't ever exist. I think when he rightly tells her, I'm even doubting if you've been on the road before, and she's taken aback. And it's true. He's calling her out on it because she knows that it's his creation. But to your earlier point, like, did he kill these people? I think it's a little wishy-washy because I think the symbolism behind the road is liberation, right?
Right.
Lilia finds herself and regains herself and finds who she is at the end of it. I mean, she dies, but she dies on her own terms. Powerful. Jen finds the strength to unbind herself, which for 100 years she couldn't do that, not on the road. Alice removes a generational curse, right? She finds the courage. She understands what it means to lift that from her whole family, right? That was destroying her life in the real world. And Wiccan finds his power, right? Like what he was after, he achieves it at the end of that. So, not everybody makes it out alive, but I don't know if everybody is punished, right? Like I think
I agree with that.
I think there's a liberation aspect to the road, even though it's a con.
I've just been seeing that, people are now saying, like, I've seen a few comments about how, like, oh, now Wiccan is just like Wanda, like he's killed, and like, and like there's all these problematic characters that have done like, dark things. And I'm of the school that I think that's interesting. I'm interested in that story. I'm interested in seeing a character's redemption arc. I'm interested in seeing them deal with those complicated emotions. And I'm not shy about saying, I love these characters. I love Wanda, even if she turned Mr. Fantastic into spaghetti.
Yeah.
I love Agatha, even though she killed Alice. I love Wiccan, even though he, possibly took the life of a child who was drowning.
Right.
for they kept that a little ambiguous. That scene with him grabbing a body for Tommy.
Yeah.
They kept that a little ambiguous because he says, did I just kill? Did I?
Right, because he's starting to realize that he is, and this is what Agatha was alluding to earlier in the episode, is killing people to serve your own agenda, right?
Right.
He's not realizing he's doing this. We know that Wanda has done this, and I think that's the moment where he's like, oh my God, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I do think they kept it ambiguous, but I think it was an aha moment for him for sure.
Yeah, and then they immediately have Agatha say, no, sometimes boys just die.
Yeah.
And that's, obviously a reference to
Nick.
her own son, Nick. And which is why I've seen some people thinking that they think that he took that kid's life, but I don't actually think so. I think it was a situation where it was a similar opportunity to William Kaplan, right? That's who it was?
I think so, yeah.
William Kaplan,
the Jewish kid.
Yeah, that he was going to die in the car accident, and Billy jumped into that. I think it's a similar situation there. Are you interested in moving towards the finale, like the final 2 episodes?
Yes. Can I just make up one point before we get there?
You can make as many comments as you want.
Like I said, I think for me, there are 2 major things in this show, aside from the ladies. I think the road is a living, breathing metaphor for a lot of things. I'd like to talk a little bit about the music and the ballad specifically.
I have the music of the show listed here. I love that.
I've listened to it multiple times. I love the song. I would be remiss if I didn't say what Patti LuPone does in that original recording of it is magnificent. Like, you can hear her above everybody else, but at the same time, you can hear her supporting all of the other voices in that chorus of singing. And I just think the lyrics are beautiful. I think the fact that they named every episode as lyrics of the ballad was perfection. And I think the main theme that I want to come across here is that the road is actually protection, right? It's written by a mom protecting her son, Agatha protecting Nick. That's how it was written. Alice's mom records it so that she could protect Alice. And then eventually it leads to the defeat of the generational curse. So it actually helps to protect her to her last days. So there's a correlation, I think, between the music, salvation, and success in this show that I think is so beautiful. And I think the fact that there are so many different versions of the same thing, but they all stand for the same thing was a masterstroke.
Yeah, the road song and everything about it, that just goes back to like my overall feeling of like, these are such detailed things, such creative things that give this show so much character, so much depth. Like these, like it's just a song, and like they managed to create this incredible track that has connection to the storyline, connection to the characters. It impacts the way the story moves. It's also a phenomenal song. It's also a phenomenal song that is now being remixed with everything on social media. And I wrote down the music. I basically had like the production value and practical sets, the music. Just, if every Disney Plus Marvel show could be this good, I'd be this excited about it all the time.
Yeah. Well, I'm not on Twitter all that often anymore, but I do remember when that music episode, when the ballad episode hit, everybody was like, oh, this is going to be a musical. The song was too long. They were kind of, ragging on the song, but it's it's a character in the show. I mean, I don't think you can get away from that, right? Like the ballad is a living, breathing thing that affects everybody in that show. And how are you going to cast Patti LuPone and not have her sing? Like, come on. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's going to live forever. I think them performing it at D23 before the show hit the airwaves was also magnificent. So they started building the buzz early on. So I thought it was really well done. I may be wrong here, but I think it was written by the same people who did the music for Frozen. So
I know they wrote Agatha All Along in WandaVision. Maybe they wrote The Witch's Road.
I think they might have. I think I saw that somewhere. I don't know it as a fact, but I think they did. And, that tracks.
So transitioning over into the finale.
Yes.
And the end of the show.
The 2 episodes that were released.
Were you gooped and gagged at the reveals? At 2 of the reveals, we got the reveal that Agatha created the song, which I mentioned a little bit earlier. Yep. Agatha created the song and there was no road. Billy did a construct of it. Agatha didn't kill Nick Scratch. There was just so much there. And we did discuss this a little bit earlier, you and I, before we hopped on our call, that it's a touchy situation with putting the Agatha or like the backstory episode after the penultimate storyline of episode 8, where you have the big battle between Rio and Agatha, and you have like Billy come in as Wiccan and kind of save her and all that kind of stuff. And of course, Agatha sacrifices herself at the end of that episode. So it is a little bit, it did lower the energy to go there, but loved it. No. Well, I loved how it was shot, for sure. Like, it was gorgeous. Like, it looked so good. And the way the nature scenes were shot, and like you had like the glares, and it was just really well done because it looked so different than the rest of the show. It looked very naturalistic, which I liked.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that it lowers the energy to go from that episode to the other. But at the same time, I really like the fact that the reveal that the road is a song happened after everything else.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's this weird situation where had they done that stuff earlier, I wouldn't end on the note of finding out, the song wasn't real. And with the fantastic kind of finishing of Billy realizing in his bedroom that he's the one that actually did the construct of the road. So in a 1-2 punch, we end one episode finding out that Billy was the one who was the construct of the road. And then in the next episode, we get the backstory of finding out Agatha was the one who invented the song and there is no real road.
Right.
So while I 100% agree it lowers the energy, I love the experience of finding it out in this order.
Heard. I think a lot of things. So my overarching thought is that they didn't stick the landing. I think we were heading somewhere, and I don't think we got there with the same level of energy that we were on. So I was a little underwhelmed by the last 2 episodes, full stop. Having said that, from a storytelling point of view, I understand why they did that. If we go back to my original point of the first episode being this random ass like detective episode where there's not a lot going on, and the last episode where we are back in the 1700s and we understand her life before everything, it's a nice bookend, right? Like, I understand why that decision was made. I just don't think I needed to know all of that, right? Like, I didn't need all of that exposition to learn what I learned from it. I think
that's interesting.
I think the pastoral things were beautiful to look at, but that could have been a montage. Like it just went on for too long.
I'm gonna agree with that. I don't think it needed to be as long as it was. It felt padded. It felt padded for sure.
Absolutely. It didn't need to be that long. And we already know that she's a good mom. We already know that she's in pain. We already know that she's in grief. So we didn't really need to see so much of the mom-son relationship to get it.
Well,
that kind of felt a little bit forced.
And I will say this. One of the reasons I really enjoyed the last episode, like the Agatha backstory, is that while I like Agatha in all the other episodes, she's putting up kind of a front a lot of the time.
Absolutely. And so that's her whole thing.
So right. And so what I really liked there is that we finally got an extended segment of her of like no more, because you've seen bits and pieces throughout the series where she's showing you kind of like true like her true personality, or that she actually is sensitive and she cares deeply, and she actually just creates a front around it. What I liked in that episode is that I felt like I finally got to fall truly in love with the person, the character of Agatha. I got to see that other side. But I agree with you that I don't know if we needed that full runtime for that. We probably could have condensed it.
Yeah, but then in the same breath, right, you realize it's her origin story of being a villain, right? Like, she goes through 300 years of stealing witches' powers, right? So, and maybe not as a justification. I don't think that there's any justification for that, right? You lose your son, you don't, kill hundreds and hundreds of witches. So I don't know if that's apples to apples, but my point is, right, like, she made choices. She made choices that led her to be this power-hungry witch. And so you watch that last episode, and then you watch the second episode of the series where like nobody wants to talk to her, nobody wants anything to do with her, and you understand why. Whether it's a fake reputation or a justified reputation, people are scared of her. And right. I think that was a very conscientious thing that she developed, just as a self-protection thing. I don't know. I enjoyed the show. I loved it. I think the finale was a little underwhelming. I think the highlight for me, hands down, is when Wiccan comes into the backyard and he's wearing his the crown and the red and the suit. Badass, super badass. And then he shoots her with his power, and she takes it, but then she stops it, and she doesn't kill him. I think that was her moment, right? That was her moment of redemption.
Well, yeah, and then that was her moment of redemption. And then when she turns around and kisses Rio and sacrifices herself so that she doesn't take Billy,
yeah,
that was great too.
Yeah.
Did you notice that Billy, after everything was said and done, when he was walking out of Agatha's house, he puts on the hood the same way that Wanda did.
I did
at the end of WandaVision, while they were all looking at her too. That was a nice.
That was a nice little moment. Yep.
That was a nice touch.
Yeah. I think he played that to perfection. I think you almost have to admire it, and at least I saw a lot of myself in him, in his adoration for her at the beginning, whether it was contrived or not. I feel like there was a real genuine connection between them. Her because she saw a lot of her son in him because he just wanted a mentor and someone to kind of help him get, ends justify the means kind of thing. But I think they grew to really, really be connected. And, at the end, right, she becomes a ghost, and she basically becomes his counterpart, because the connection is so strong.
Well, and that's actually, surprisingly, that's really good That's really good comic accurate groundwork that they put in, because in the comics, Agatha Harkness is Billy Maximoff's is their nanny, their babysitter. Like she teaches them, she does all of that. So they have that familial relationship. So it was good that they were able to make it work. And I thought that the chemistry between Catherine Hahn and Joe Locke was just awesome. Like you could see them kind of playing off each other all the time.
Yeah.
So
I think my favorite part, aside from the Wiccan outfit, I think, and I hope we get to see more of her. I hope that the story continues. Jen finally being unbound and crawling out and flying, and I hope Lilia's prediction that she is the future comes to something, because I'm not done with her. Like, I need to see more of her. I want to see where she takes this, and I want to see how she interacts with Wiccan in a future project, because she was great. And I have to say, I kind of called it. At one point in the show, they say that, two people are going to survive. And I kind of early on knew that it was going to be the kid and her. And I'm glad that I was proven right.
Where was I going? I honestly, I missed that line, and I don't think I was really thinking about it. I think I was, for a lot of the experience, I was kind of just like, I don't know, I was kind of just letting it happen. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times, like, I think Agatha All Along became my comfort food.
Yeah.
Every Wednesday, or if I didn't catch it on Wednesday, I would watch it on Thursday. So a part of me was just really looking forward to seeing, okay, what's next? Like, what's next for this? What's next for these characters? And I'm a little sad. That there won't be a new episode. And
well, to quote Lilia,
go for
sad it. Is better than angry.
True. So it sounds like we both recommend Agatha All Along.
Absolutely. I will be watching this over and over and over again. I hope it gets a physical media release like WandaVision did, because I would love to have both of them.
I'm going to make a bold statement that I don't know if it's going to be recency bias. I think I like this show more than WandaVision.
I agree.
I think it's more consistent. I think WandaVision, I think it has a much more clear idea of what it wants to do than WandaVision. I think WandaVision had the burden of being the first MCU Disney Plus show. Wait, hold on. I already know where you're going with this.
Okay.
Because WandaVision is, without a doubt, probably the most solid MCU show. And it understands exactly what it is. It did the episodic thing correctly. It played with the concepts and the different TV shows. WandaVision is great. But what I'm trying to say with that statement is, I think WandaVision had the burden of it being major Avengers characters. People come in with the expectation of action. They come in with the expectation of what these characters have done in previous Avengers films. In Infinity War, because that did take place before that, right? Yeah, that did.
Yeah.
Okay, so in Infinity War and all that, like, it comes with that pressure, and I think with that pressure, sometimes WandaVision maybe tonally or maybe plot wise, like it, with Monica Rambeau and kind of like the people on the outside world, like, I don't know if it always worked 100%, but I still think WandaVision is the best show that they've done.
Yeah.
But I think Agatha All Along is actually better.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I think between the two, Agatha for me is my more favorite. I think WandaVision was great. As you're talking, I thought of one very important point that I wanted to make, is that I think Agatha's success has been the fact that you don't have to watch 18 movies
right
in the MCU to plug in, right? You can have some transitory knowledge of WandaVision and watch this and you're good, right? WandaVision carried the burden
Yep, absolutely.
Of everything that happened before it, right? The point of that show is her dealing with grief. If you don't understand the relationship, if you don't understand what they went through, if you don't understand Wanda, you're not going to understand anything that happens in that show. Agatha is self-contained.
Yeah.
So, and she's a D-list character in the comic book. So they really had a lot of room to run here. From an innovative standpoint, I think Wanda is far and away the better candidate there. Like I said, Agatha was it was the Wizard of Oz. Let's not kid ourselves, right? It was that plot.
Yeah, and it plays on, like, you know, every fantastic kind of witchcraft, you know, those types of storylines that we've been fans of.
The cultural outrage that Lilia has in every episode, I thought was great. And then in her challenge, they were all stereotypical witches. Was like,
I think if we can get more MCU shows to the caliber of Agatha All Along, we'll be eating really good.
Yeah. So 2 thumbs up. We'll be watching frequently. Catherine Hahn, brava. Joe Locke, brava. Patty, brava.
Everyone, brava.
Everyone, brava.
Great. So I guess fairly quick, have you watched anything else other than Agatha All Along?
Absolutely not. I have been reading a lot. I've been reading many political books recently, so I've not watched any new TVs.
I haven't watched anything new, but I've been watching lots of episodes of Highlander.
Okay.
I'm always gonna bring the random with what I'm watching.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right. Awesome. So we did it. We did our first MCU show, our first season recap. We will be back next week with Cruel Intentions.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dangerous Liaisons.
And Dangerous Liaisons. That is correct. And we will chat a little bit about the Cruel Intentions spin-off TV series starring Sarah Michelle Gellar that never aired. It never aired. All right. Well, thank you for listening, everyone. Jerry, hope you have a great night.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween, everyone.